Science 4, Quarter 3, Week 1. Our lesson for today is about effects of force applied to an object. And for our learning objectives for today's lesson, explain the effects of force when applied to an object. Identify the effects of force on the shape of an object. Explain the effects of force on the size of an object. Describe the effects of force on the movement of an object. And identify some safety measures in physical activities involving force. So this will be our target for today's lesson. Before we proceed to our lesson, let us talk about what is force. A force is a push or pull that causes an object to move faster or slower, stop, change direction, or change size or shape. Without force, nothing would ever move. So that is the meaning of force. Now let's find out what you know about force. So direction, identify the effect of force on the object based on these choices. So the choices are, for letter A is shape, letter B, motion, letter C, size, letter D, direction. Item number 1. A paper plane is blown by the wind. So what is the effect of the wind to the paper plane? Item number 2. A fruit cart is pushed by a vendor. So what is the effect to the fruit cart pushed by the vendor? Item number 3. A lump of dough is cut into smaller pieces. Item number 4. A basketball player blocks the attempt of the opponent to shoot the ball. And for item number 5, making of a pot out of clay. For the next activity, direction, choose the letter of the correct answer. Write your answers in your answer sheet or science activity notebook. Question number 1. Number 6, I should say. What will you do if you will see this signage, "Do not enter," in front of the gate of a school? So your choices are A, enter the school, B, tell the cop, C, throw the signage, D, do not enter in the school. For question number 7, which of the following can be changed when you apply force? A, direction, B, motion, C, size and shape, D, all of the above. For question number 8, a marble that is on the ground will move only when A. You look at it. B. It is left on its own. C. Bumped by another marble. And letter D. Another marble passes beside it. Question number 9. What will be changed when you squeeze a balloon? A. Color. B. Shape. C. Size. D. Odor. Question number 10. During physical education activities, what will you do if someone pushes you? A. Hold to someone near you. B. Push the person beside you. C. Push the person in front of you. D. Tell him not to push anyone. Question number 11. Which of the following will most likely cause an accident? A. Playing with a friend on the branches of a tree. B. Riding a motorcycle with a helmet. C. Wearing a face mask when going out. D. Perform the duck, hold, and cover during an earthquake. Question number 12. How will you change the shape of a sponge? A. By twisting. B. By pounding. C. By pressing. D. By cutting. Question number 13. B1 and B2 agreed to have a race with their toy car. Both pushed their toy cars in one single blow. B2 won the race. What do you think is the reason why B2 won? A. B1 has a smaller hand than B2. B. B1 got nervous while pushing the toy car. C. B2 is stronger than B1. And D. B2 applied more force than B1. Question number 14. Which of the following shows a change of direction by an object when force was applied? A. Pressing of clay on the table. B. Blowing of the horn. C. A ball is bumped by another ball. And letter D. Cutting a piece of paper. For question number 15. Which of these statements define a force? A. It is a push upon an object. B. It is a pull upon an object. C. It is a push and pull upon an object. And letter D. It is any action that can never change the state of motion of an object. So let's proceed for our lesson 1. Can you change my shape? Objects around us come in different shapes. When we apply force, we can change the shape of an object. Can you think of some ways to change the shape of an object? In this lesson, you will discover some changes in the shape of an object if you apply force on it. Okay, this time,
Hello
you
students,
will watch
today
a
we are
short
going to
video
observe
clip.
how forces can change the shape or size of an object. Here I have a piece of paper. I am going to attempt to crumple this paper into the smallest possible ball. Can you guess which force I am applying to crumple the paper? That's right, I use the force of push to crumple this paper ball. Force can change the shape of an object.
Look what happened to the paper, huh? Observe.
Here I have a ball of dough. As you can see, if I push down into the dough, I can change the shape of the dough. I have changed the shape of the dough with the force of push. I can also pull the dough to stretch it. I can squeeze, I can twist, and in all this I use the force of push to change the shape of the dough. While rolling out a roti, I combine the force of push and pull to give shape to my roti. I have combined the forces of push and pull to change the shape of my roti. I can also use a mold to give it a shape that I like. Here I am using a cookie cutter to press down and create a new shape. Can you guess which force I have used to push down on my cookie cutter? You too can create various shapes like this. You can conduct this investigation at home using some Play-Doh. You can
Okay. From the video, you see the different changes that happen to the different objects when force is applied. So that is the effect of force to the different objects when force is applied. Shapes and sizes change.
Hello
Now, for your activities for today's lesson, let us talk about the different activities that you are going to do so you could prove to yourself what would be the effect when you apply force to the different objects. Okay, for activity 1, so the materials that you need is a sponge. Direction: get a sponge from the kitchen. Observe the shape of the object. Take note of the shape of the sponge. Squeeze it, then release the sponge. Write your observations in your answer sheet. So for your questions to be answered as your guide, so you can write your observations based on your activity 1. Here are the questions. Number 1, what happened to the sponge when you squeeze it? Question number 2, what have you noticed about the sponge when you released it? Okay, you can write your answers on your science notebook. For your activity 2, the materials that you need is a plastic ruler. Direction: take a plastic ruler. Observe the shape of the object. Bend the ruler. Then release the ruler. Observe. Write your observations in your answer sheet. So for your guide questions, in answering your observations, number 1, what happened when you bent the plastic ruler? And question number 2, what happened when you released the plastic ruler? You may write your answer on your science notebook. For activity 3, the materials that you need are bar of clay. For the direction, place a bar of clay on the table. Press it and then release. Observe what happens. Write your observations in your answer sheet. For your guide questions, number 1, what happened to the clay when you pressed it on the table? Number 2, what happened to the clay when you released it? Write your observations in your science notebook. Okay, to summarize your learning circuit for lesson 1, here are the ideas or the concepts that we formed. The shape of an object can be changed when you apply force on it. Pushing, pulling, pounding, compressing, bending, twisting, tearing, stretching, and squeezing are some ways of changing the shape of an object. After applying force, some materials retain their shape, but there are also some materials which do not. Example of materials that will retain their shape after you apply force. Here are the examples. A teddy bear, a cowboy hat, and a rubber ball. Here are the examples of materials that will not retain their shape after you apply force. the eggshells, and styrofoam cups. Okay, you may copy this organizer in your notebook. Direction. Complete the chart below. Write your answers in your science activity notebook. So you have two columns. The first column are the name of materials. For the second column, you will write there in what way can you change the shape of the object. So the materials are, number 1, leaves. So what will you do to the leaves? Or what force will you apply to the leaves to change its shape? Number 2 is cotton balls. Number 3, chocolate bar. Number 4, towel. Number 5, slipper. Number 6, paper. Number 7, plastic cup. Number 8, metal spoon. Number 9, tin can. And number 10, plastic bottle. Now take note, you are going to change the shape of the object. What force are you going to apply to these materials? For our lesson 2, can you change my size? Objects around us come in different sizes. When we apply force, we can change its size. Can you think of some ways to change the size of an object? In this lesson, you will learn some changes in the size of an object if you apply force on it. So this time, we will find out how to change the size of an object by applying force on it. Direction. Find 5 words from the puzzle chart about some ways to change the shape of an object. Let's find the words. The first word is bend. Next is push. Next is tear. Next is pull. And the last one is pound. So these are the different ways how to change the shape of an object. For your activity 4, the materials that you need is a piece of garter and a ruler. Make sure that the garter is shorter than the ruler. Okay, for the direction, using a ruler, measure the garter without stretching it. So before you stretch it, you measure first the garter. This time, stretch the garter and measure it. Okay, for the questions for this activity, number 1. How will you describe the length of the garter not stretched? Question number 2. How will you describe the length of the stretched garter? And for question number 3, what is your observation about the length of the garter after you did this activity? And for the learning circuit for lesson 2, here is the concept. The size of an object can be changed when you apply force. There are also several ways to change the size of an object, like cutting, stretching, pounding, dropping, and slicing. After you apply force, some objects retain their size, but others do not. You bought a round-shaped cake from the market. When you arrived home, your 3 siblings want to have a piece of it, but you don't want to destroy the shape of the cake. What will you do? Guide questions. What are some ways of giving your siblings a piece of cake? So how are you going to cut the cake according to the number of your siblings? Number 2, which of those ways can retain the shape of the cake? Make sure that you are not going to destroy the shape of the cake. And for number 3, what did you observe in the size of the cake after you gave some to your siblings? For lesson number 3, where am I going? Objects around us can be moved when we apply force on it. We can also stop a moving object or change its position or path where it is going. So in this lesson, you will learn the effects of force on the movement of an object. So before we proceed, let us answer this activity. Direction. Write in your answer sheet about how to change the size of an object. No repetition of answers. So for number 1, what will you do to change the size of the cake? Number 2, what force are you going to apply to change the size of the log? Number 3, what force are you going to apply to the metal to change its size? And number 4, what did you apply to the loaf of bread to change its size? For activity 5, push and go. Directions. Look for a flat and smooth surface in your area. Number 2, mark a starting point and a finish line on the surface. Measure at least a 2-meter distance. From the starting point, place the toy car down. Next, push the toy car towards the finish line with lesser force. Then measure the distance it traveled from the starting line. Next, repeat the process but with moderate force. Then record again the distance it traveled. Next, repeat the process once more but with a stronger force. Then record the distance the toy car traveled. Okay, so here's the toy car. So this is the starting point. So you're going to complete this table with 3 columns. For column 1, you have 3 trials. For column 2, the different forces applied to the toy car. And then for column 3, the measure of the toy car traveled upon applying the force. For your guide questions, question number 1, which of the 3 trials made the toy car travel the fastest or the farthest? Why? For question number 2, which of the 3 trials made the toy car travel the nearest? And then, why? For activity 6, hang and pull. Materials needed, a spring balance. So here is a spring balance. But if spring balance is not available, you don't have a spring balance, you can use a garter and a paper clip, like on the other picture. Look at this one. Be sure to measure the garter first without stretching it. So before you start, measure the garter first. And then another material needed is 3 padlocks or stones placed inside a cellophane. So if you don't have padlocks, you can use stones, but place it inside a cellophane. And then a ruler to be used to measure the garter. So you're going to measure the garter. So here's how you're going to do. Number 1, hang the padlock or stone in the spring balance or in the garter with the paper clip. And then measure the length of stretch of the garter or the spring balance every time a padlock or a stone is hung on it. So here are the varied activities that you're going to do. You're going to do 3 trials. Again, the first trial, maybe you will have only 2 stones. And then you measure how long the garter stretch. And then for the next trial, you add another piece of stone and then measure again the length of the stretch garter. And then for the third trial, add another piece of stone and then measure the stretch length of the garter. For your guide questions, what did you observe with the spring balance or the garter? when you hang a padlock or a stone on it? Question number 2. What was the effect of the spring balance or to the spring balance or to the garter as you added more padlocks or stones? So for our learning circuit, here are the concepts. The force applied on an object affects the movement of an object. Example, push and go. The toy car traveled farther when the force applied was stronger. It traveled nearer when lesser the force was applied to it. Hang and pull. The spring balance is stretched down when a padlock was hung to it. The spring balance is stretched more as more padlocks or heavy objects are hung to it. Lesson 4. Safety first. How often do you watch the news? Was there any news about accidents? How can you avoid accidents? How can you be safe while doing some physical activities? In this lesson, you will learn some safety measures to avoid accidents while doing some physical activities. It's playtime. Direction. Study the picture below. Look at the picture. Answer the questions in your answer sheet or science activity notebook. Okay, on the picture you will see a girl biking around. Question number 1. What will happen to the girl if she is not careful in riding her bicycle? How can she be safe while enjoying her bicycle ride? For activity 7, direction. Examine these pictures of children doing different activities. Then answer the guide questions below. Okay, look at the first picture. What is the little boy doing? Drinking soft drinks maybe. And then the next picture is some children are having fun while swimming. Maybe on the beach. And then next picture, a boy climbing a tree. And then another one. What is this picture? A boy is climbing a fence maybe. And then another picture is a boy playing the monkey bar. Okay, questions. Number 1, what are the children doing in each picture? You have an idea now. And number 2, what will they do to be safe while doing these activities? For our learning circuit, there are safety measures in school. Okay, number 1. The gate of the playground must be wide enough to ensure that nobody would be trapped when there is a need to evacuate. Swings and slides must be placed at a safe distance from each other. Next, do not block the exit areas of the playground. Do not run along the corridors and pathways. Enter the classroom one at a time. Do not step on chairs and tables or climb up shelves and cabinets in your classroom. Avoid running when going out of your classroom. Know the different fire or emergency exits in your classroom. Always obey environmental prints or safety reminder signs in your school. Safety measures at home. Play with your toys with care. Return them to their proper places after use. Do not play habulan inside your house. You might bump into your vases, cabinets, and other appliances that could hurt you. Do not climb in cabinets, step on chairs and tables, nor hide inside drawers. Do not play with your vases, figurines, and other decorations. These are not toys. Do not play along stairs. You might fall down. Okay, for your last activity, direction. Draw a happy face if the situation is practicing safety measures. If not, draw a sad face. Okay, item number 1. Crossing in a busy street. For number 2, turning off the valve of an LPG tank after using it. Item number 3, wearing industrial gloves while bending iron rods. Item number 4, walking slowly along the corridors. And item number 5, unplugging an electrical wire with wet hands. So that ends our lesson. Thank you for listening.